Special thanks to Herman Marshall and their handcrafted award-winning small batch whiskey for being such a great partner with Suds, with Luds, and our Dub Network. Today's show, Suds with Luds. Really no introduction needed here. And I've actually been kind of wondering, when am I going to not be asking any questions and this guy's going to take over? So I got the Sturminator, the sports bully.
Sure.
Bob Sturm. I am so happy to have you here, Bob. You are a book of knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know how you do it. And I was watching the Stars game at home, and I saw something maybe after the game, and maybe it was even on your little Twitter thing. You're a Twitter fiend, aren't you?
I have a problem.
Well, yeah, but
no, it'd be good to walk away from Twitter someday. But no, I've kind of moved everything to where anything I need to see or learn is there.
Yeah.
And so I figure there's enough people, I guess, that are into it that I often then say, well, now you need to know about this, right? So it's kind of that viral way we all learn.
Yeah,
it's kind of this community. I don't know.
Are you at a point, once you get deep enough into it, like you almost feel you're obligated to kind of stay in touch with everybody?
Yeah. It's funny because there are people that I guess they have grown accustomed to it, which is good. I mean, look, we're all making a living or trying to. And,
some of us better than others. Yeah.
And so it's funny, on a night where I'm not watching a game, people will like check in and say, why aren't you watching this game? Why aren't you watching what I want you to watch right now? And then if I like have something on the Mavs, somebody's like, why aren't you watching the Stars? Or you're watching the Stars, why aren't you watching whatever's going on over here? And I'm like, well, first of all, here's the deal. I've been really good at figuring out how to watch multiple things at the same time.
How many TVs you got working at the same time?
We can get to 3 if we need to, but anything more than that is just moving. You can't focus.
Too much going on,
right? And so I do try to focus on one at a time, but. I mean, I'm really good with that remote. I'm really good with multiple screens. So
you got 3 remotes then too. You're working.
Yeah. So look, it's modern times and modern technology, and it's I guess my job to a certain extent to try to know what's going on in many places. So I got people sort of taking attendance on me, and making sure that I'm who I claim to be sometimes. Right?
But are all 3 TVs on different sports? I mean, would you have like a Stars game? And I'm assuming they're all the local teams, right?
For the most part. For the most part, or my Wisconsin teams.
Okay, well, you're Wisconsin. Let's talk about Wisconsin too.
Sure.
Sun Prairie.
Yeah.
Little town. What is it? 10, 15 miles north of Madison or so. Somewhere. In that neighborhood?
That's about right. And every time I go back, they're closer and closer to being connected. And then, so that's the deal up there. It's suburban Madison, and so that's how I guess I originally got to know your name and who you are. We didn't know each other because I was like 7 when you were playing for the Fighting Sioux. But
there's the first start.
But I'll tell you. I mean, well, come on. You were a part of my childhood in ways, but. I was just thinking. So you played, let's say, 80 to 82 with the Fighting Sioux.
I always have to do the math. 79-80 was my first year. I walked on to the school at that time, so I was a freshman. Or
how were you a walk-on? That's what I want to know.
You know what? I got recruited by like 2 or 3 Wisconsin schools. Superior probably being, but it was D3 at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember going.
Nothing out of Madison.
No. Well, that is a story.
Okay.
So here we are. I knew it wouldn't take long.
Yeah.
So Badger Bob.
Yeah.
Contacted me, and we really like you, blah blah blah, and so I got a full ride. All happy. Parents are happy. My little hometown of 1,200 people, all this other kind of stuff. And I get a call about 2 weeks later, and it's Coach. And he goes, Sled, how you doing? I say, hey, good, Coach, what's going on? I don't like getting calls because Gasparini did it to me when I was in North Carolina. And whenever you get a call, like especially in the summertime, it's because they hear you're doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
So he goes, Are you aware that here at the University of Wisconsin, we have a 2.5 grade point average or whatever it was? And I said, no, coach didn't know anything about it. And he goes, well, son, you're not even close. And so that was the end of that.
Oh, no.
It was the light was on and the light was flipped off.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so it ended up being, a couple small schools. Went there to visit Superior. A guy by the name of Gary Harker was the coach at the time.
Yeah.
And I actually did a hockey school in Eagle River. This show is
okay.
All of a sudden it's about me, but we're going to switch.
No,
this
no.
up.
I have follow-up questions.
What happened was, yeah, I knew it. So I take my best friend there, and we go visit the school. And at the time in high school, all I did was woods and metals and auto shop. I didn't do damn thing, obviously, by my grade point average. And he had made a comment. We went to a Big Boy, had lunch, and he made a comment. He goes, this would be a great place, a school, industrial arts. And I don't even know what the hell industrial arts is. I'm talking, I didn't know that was what shop was called.
Yeah, we're in Grand Forks.
No, this is in Superior, Wisconsin.
I'm sorry.
I went to visit.
Okay.
This little school in the summer, and he made a comment like, I don't know if you're going to make our team here, but this would be a great school to attend. And I booted my buddy under the table.
Yeah.
And he got up to take a piss.
Right.
And so I looked at Jack and I said, we're out of here. So we just left and took off. And then I go home and I'm watching the game. At some point, it was North Dakota versus Minnesota.
Okay.
And that national championship.
Yeah.
And sometime in the second period, I'm at my buddy's house with his parents, and his dad happened to be my high school coach at the time, and my parents there. And I made the comment, I said, whoever loses this game, I'm going to go try out there. And everybody kind of turned around and they looked to see how many beers were sitting next to me, because we were having a couple beers and stuff like that. And ultimately North Dakota. And so my coach at the time actually played at North Dakota. He called up the head coach there, Gino Gasparini, and that's how I got there. And so I went for a tryout, walked on, and then I was kind of tinkering with football because I had other things. So they got a football team, and so anyway, and that's how it happened. And
wow.
Yeah, it was weird the way that whole thing fell into place. And then Rick Wilson just happened to be a coach there at the time with Gino, and kind of saw some things. And it's funny because I actually talked to his wife when Sergei Zubov came in here, and she goes, I got to tell you a little story. She goes, when you came there, I went home and you were there for your first month. And she goes, and Carol, Rick's wife, was the skating instructor.
Yes.
There. And she said, I asked Rick one night, I said, Wills, why do you got that blonde-haired kid here? He goes, he can't even skate, and he looks clumsy out there and all this kind of stuff. And apparently, Wills had said to his wife, he goes, you wait and see, he's going to play in the pros someday.
Yeah.
And I never knew that story until Zuby's thing here. Yeah, so that's how I ended up at North Dakota.
Okay, well, so the reason I am into hockey, the reason, I'm obviously grown up in Wisconsin helped, but people don't understand how little hockey was available back then on television.
Sure.
And just the impact. And we're talking about the heyday of Gretzky, you know. And so I'm a little kid, and my dad was into football and the Packers and to a lesser extent basketball, and he didn't know anything about hockey and didn't care anything about hockey, and kind of has remained that way to this day, although he's not mean about it or anything. It's just not his thing, and so that's fine. But I fell in love with the Badgers probably 81. They won the national title in 81. So for people that, and I'm positive
that was the year they were called the backdoor Badgers,
yes,
right? Didn't they back into that?
Yes, they did. Yep. They did.
Because they beat us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was a deal where I was really young, and we're talking fourth grade. And the WCHA was a big deal, although what, have 6 teams at the time or something like that.
Yeah.
And the national titles for Wisconsin were a big deal because their basketball and football teams were horrible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, horrible. I mean, bottom of the Big Ten, down there with Northwestern every year. So it basically went, Wisconsin won the national title in 77. Then I think maybe you're referencing Minnesota, 78 or 79.
I think I don't know if they won it before that, but that particular game was 78, 79.
Okay.
Yep.
And then North Dakota won it in 80, Wisconsin in 81, North Dakota in 82, Wisconsin in 83.
Yep.
So Gino Gasparini and Badger Bob and then Jeff Sauer. And so it goes back and forth. And up in Grand Forks, you guys were throwing dead Badgers on the ice. and I'm sure we were doing something to you guys because when North Dakota and Wisconsin would play, it was a stop down for.
Remember the big brawl?
Oh, yeah.
I was getting hit by trombones.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and
at the Coliseum? At the Dane County Coliseum.
And guess who I grabbed?
Who?
Right off the hop. Bob Johnson.
Really?
He actually grabbed me, and then I grabbed him. And we're like, wait, this is wrong.
Is there footage of that thing anywhere?
Oh yeah, that's out there.
Man,
oh
I need
no,
to see
somebody
that.
sent a video of that to me about 3-4 months ago.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, it's in black and white, but no, it's actually in color. But yeah, it was quite the thing, and it's funny. Like you talk about how that thing went back and forth because Chelly ends up being my partner in Montreal.
Yes,
Chris Chelios.
Yes,
and so he took, like, I left after our second one. Chelly left after he took off. Then all of a sudden in 80, he comes in 85, and we're partners there. So
okay, so I think 81 was probably the first time I got to a Badger game, and I just remember, and this is the experience.
Now, how old are you then?
In 81, I am 9.
Okay.
So it's one of those deals, and I've heard this said by other people, and I'm just going to steal it because it's true. It's true for all of us. The first time you see a rink, especially one with thousands of seats around it, and you just didn't grow up on the ice. You were on other sports, and then you walk into the Dane County Coliseum, and the ice is so white, and the blue lines are so blue, and the red lines are so red, and you're just what is this? And the players come out, and the circling, and then the collisions, and the speed, and the cheering, and everything happens, and the Wisconsin band, and all that, and it was, for lack of a better term, it was a spiritual experience. It was just, I don't remember who they were playing at the time because it was one of those non-conference games you could get tickets to. Yeah. And it just grabbed me. And I remember the first player I really remember is Chris Chelios. Because his name was weird. His name was odd, and to a 9-year-old, it was not Smith or Jones. It was Chelios. It felt elegant or royalty, or I don't know what it felt like. But here's what's hilarious about. So it was Chelios and Bruce Driver. Yeah. It was Pat Flatley and those guys Wisconsin had, and they were heroes in that city. And so I grew up, thinking that Tony Granato was just, unbelievable, and all those guys. And so I'm trying to remember if this was when you were there or right after you left. I want to say it might have been 83, but maybe it was 81. Who can say? Who can say? But there was a 2-game total goal series up in Grand Forks where it was 1-1 on the first night, and then the second night it was 6-5. Somehow Wisconsin got out of there, and then so it must have been 83. Okay. But whatever. The game-winning goal was scored by
wait. Okay, go ahead.
I want to say Mark Houck. Is that a name Hauker. You remember?
But no, wait now. Hauker, I didn't play with him. Are you talking about Badgers?
It was a Wisconsin player.
Because there was
Houck.
a Hauker that played for North Dakota, but he was before me.
Well, it was an illegal stick.
Oh, okay.
So he scored. We thought we had beat the Fighting Sioux, who were the reigning national title. I mean, I might be getting details wrong. It's in the back of my head. Yeah, it's one of those games where I said, if I could ever find video of this game, this would be like the holy grail to relive it, because it's Wisconsin and North Dakota in like the early 80s, and nobody even thought to record it who was part of the team. So, but it was an illegal stick, and so the goal was taken back. We were, put on the penalty kill because that was a 2-minute infraction, I think, and then ended up winning in overtime. And I think they had to empty I think they had to pull the goalie to get it to overtime. And I think Chelios scored with a few seconds left in a scramble around the net. Just the craziest thing. The point to all of this is people say, who was your NHL team growing up? And I didn't have one. I had college hockey, and it to this day, it was influential for those years where who knew that Craig Ludwig and Dave Tippett and all these Dallas Stars people, Rick Wilson, were all going to be a part of my adulthood NHL
in the neighborhood here.
Yeah, and honestly, even my NHL thing. So my parents were very against the horrible influences of television. It's possible we grew up in different backgrounds despite the same state, Craig. But my house, very religious, and it was, TV's the devil. TV is the downfall of. So they never had cable. In fact, we only had TV for sports when I was that age. Up until like 14. You could break out the TV for a Packer game, watch it in black and white. Little tiny TV. It was horrible. But anyway, that's how I watched sports. And it was no cable. And so there was zero NHL.
The only game you got to watch in black and white for me was Chicago Blackhawks on Sundays.
Well, that's the thing.
I never watched hockey. I wasn't even a hockey fan.
Okay, you know what? That makes a lot of sense because I had never seen an NHL game, and I remember I would like cut out box scores of Wayne Gretzky's name. You know, they would score, they'd win 7-3 or something, and Gretzky's name is on every single stinking goal, like
Sure.
either a goal or assist, and you're just like, who is this madman? As you look at all the box scores in the league, so he was just a concept to me. A lot of these guys were, and I do remember. There was some little rinky-dink cable channel in Madison, channel. I can't even remember the number now. It's all running together, Craig. But the point is, they decided we're going to just start showing NHL games, and it was right around the time of Chris Chelios at the end of the Montreal run.
Okay,
and before he was sent to Chicago, and when he was sent to Chicago, I was like, look, I don't know anything about the NHL. I'm a Blackhawks guy now because they have Chris Chelios.
You're a Chelly fan,
and then they had Gary Suter for crying out loud.
You should see them two idiots when they get together.
I bet.
So we'd sit at a bar, and Suits was, when you're playing, Suits was in Calgary, I think, at the time. But anyway, they come in there, and everybody can have some and too many, and next thing, the game breaks out to where these guys are waiting for the other guy to look away so they can take their beer bottle and smash the watch that they just happen to be wearing. And they would take turns at this, breaking each other's watches every time they'd come into town. And then we did the Molson slow pitch when they had the big softball thing, and we were in Niagara or wherever the hell it was, and the same stuff broke out. These two guys just sit there and smash watches all the time, and they're not cheap watches. They're both making some money. So, what sports did you play when you grew up?
Mostly basketball and soccer.
Okay.
Just because I went, my parents sent me to a tiny private school, and so I loved football. I watched, I remember John Brockington, which I'm sure you do, but the point is he was done in 76 when I was 4, and somehow I clearly remember him playing.
Yeah.
So I was raised on Packer football. I've got the tattoo to show it, but I didn't have that when I was 4. But I was raised on that, and then but I never played football, and turned out I ended up getting fascinated with hockey, but never really played hockey except on the pond. And instead our school had soccer, so I played that, and then we had basketball, and I was tall.
So did you excel in any particular sport, or were you in your mind?
I was okay. I was good at basketball.
Were you tall as a kid also? Were you towering above everybody else?
Yeah, I was probably the tallest kid I saw all season. But I say this, and you might enjoy this because you're from up there. I was Wisconsin private school good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was really, really good for a Wisconsin private school basketball player.
I got you.
So great stats. Boy, I bet you can go play in college. And then I tried to play in college, and I couldn't guard anybody at the Division I level because in Virginia, where I went to college, they were Division I at Liberty, and so I'm like, all right, I'm going to walk on. I can do this. 18 and 12 in high school, that translates. I can make this team. I'm going to walk on, and I go out there, and I can hit wide open jumpers like any guy who has worked on it, but I couldn't guard anybody. And so you take the worst guy on the roster and say, Sturm, let's go cover him, and he's going to have a career night. Just because I just couldn't. I'd never seen Division I athletes in Wisconsin. And I'm sure they're out there, but they weren't on my schedule.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I'm freaking good at this. And then it's a small pond, big pond thing, right? You go out there, and you're like, whoa, where these guys are from where I'm from.
Why didn't you go to Madison?
Well, again, the religious family part was kind of made it out that Madison was
they call it Madtown they're in the top 5 every year of party school.
Best party school.
Oh, yeah.
So my parents raised me to be terrified of what would happen to my sunny disposition if I ended up in Madison. They'd find me on the curb, which is actually okay. So I married my high school girlfriend.
So were you married when you were in school?
No.
When you went to college?
No, when I graduated from college, we finally got married. But we dated all through,
Is it Sally? No,
Sally. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's impressive, man. That's a pretty good recall on your part. Anyway, she's from Madison as well. And her dad, who has passed away, I want to say in 2004. So he right after he retired, he got cancer. It was really kind of a bummer because he was such a good dude. But I grew up with her dad, knowing him because it's a small community. And he was a Madison cop. And so he's also a immigrant from Mexico. Okay. So not the biggest hockey enthusiast.
Sure. Soccer.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he was a sergeant in Madison all through her childhood. So, we're talking late 70s, probably until the year 2000. He is a big deal on the Madison police force, despite originally swimming the Rio Grande to get here. It's a really cool immigration story. And I suppose it informs my politics.
Depends on what channel you're watching.
Yeah,
nowadays.
well, I was going to say it informs my politics a bit more than some would recognize. But anyway, one of my favorite stories about her dad is that he arrested Chris Chelios once upon a time when Chelly was a Badger, and it was is it called a PI, like public intoxication? It's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
which actually means peeing against the wall.
Yeah.
Is generally how it works.
Yeah.
So outside of Madison Bar, I guess my father-in-law was walking or patrol, and here's some dude, going number one against the wall outside a bar, and he is going, it's college kid. This is what you do. Madison didn't have much crime, but we probably had a lot of the drunk tank was always full.
Well, yes. The bathrooms are always full inside.
Yes, and the bathrooms are full. I mean, where are you supposed to go? So the story is that Chelly kind of pulled the "Don't you know who I am?"
I'm big dog here on campus. Yeah.
And of course, my father-in-law said, "I've got no idea who you are, but put your hands behind your back." and so when word got out that he had arrested hockey hero Chris Chelios, it was news to him.
Yeah.
But it's always been a special place in my heart because my favorite hockey player got arrested by my father-in-law, and I just thought, this is what it's all about.
I'll have to get you, me, and Chelly on a three-way. We can rehash
I would love that. I would love that.
You should need to come with me, Chelly. So I had Chelly do the podcast here a few months ago, and I said, Chelly, are you cool? Because he was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And and he goes, yeah, I should be. I said, well, it's going to be like 10 o'clock. I was in Wisconsin, in my hometown, doing it. We kind of did the remote thing. And he goes, well, I'm going to be with Rock tomorrow night, Kid Rock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no. So anyways, I called the next day. He didn't call me when he's supposed to.
Yeah.
And then I called. No answer. And
right.
called and called and called. And ultimately it was like, oh, was that today? And I'm like, Chelly, we talked about this. And he goes, no, I'm good. He goes, kid got sick and he wasn't even here last night. So now I'm kind of, okay, good.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he's driving through Chicago. He calls me back on his cell phone as he's driving through Chicago to go see his mom, to take his mom to lunch.
Okay.
And so we did the podcast that way.
Love it.
And as we pulls up to his driveway, his mom's waiting outside and she's kind of yelling in the background, the Greek mom.
Yeah.
And he goes, Mom, come on. This is all on the thing. And she gets in the car and he goes, I'm talking. And he goes, I'm doing a podcast. She goes, oh, that's nice. And she goes, do you remember Ludwig, right? She goes, oh, yeah. And she's talking about all that kind of stuff. But that's Chelly. So what he says to me, he goes, I said, Chelly, we got to do this again. He goes, yeah, but next time you're coming to Chicago and we'll do it on the boat.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. And see, Chelly's boat is an 82-footer.
I bet.
It's not a boat, right? That's a ship.
Awesome.
So we can, that would be a good, we could take your show on the road.
I would love that.
You would enjoy that.
Didn't his mom run a restaurant up there?
No, they don't have it anymore.
Okay.
I believe that it was called Chelly's Chili's.
Chelly's Chili.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chelly's Chili's. So I don't think that they did that. His dad had passed away, and so I don't think she's doing that anymore. And Chelly kind of was taking over and kind of did that stuff. And I think he opened up another one in Detroit. So
well, and honestly, that was probably the pinnacle for me was, seeing Chicago Stadium in its natural habitat in the early 90s with those
worst steps in the league.
Oh, but the best. And you know what? I probably went to 10 games there as a college student.
The Oregon?
Dude, the Oregon.
The Anthem?
I never had a seat.
Oh, really?
I've never had a seat at Chicago Stadium because by the time I was a big enough deal to either pay for seats or get media passes, they'd closed the building. But, man, I promise you, if I could go back in time to anywhere in the sports world, it's probably going to be a playoff game at Chicago Stadium, and the anthem and the sound and that the 92 team was probably my team because it had Chelios and Suter, but it also had really young 50-goal Jeremy Roenick and Michel Goulet and Steve Larmer and just Pat Foley's voice.
Should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just start going down, all the way down the line up to like Jocelyn Lemieux and
see, that's when you mentioned Joe, they built their team around that building.
Yeah.
And because it was a little bandbox, we used to call them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I remember being, and when you get to start games, and the one place you really didn't want to start a game was in Chicago because the fans are going crazy. The organ's playing, and they're starting guys like Jocelyn Lemieux, and they got all the big dummies there, right?
Right.
And you knew for the first 5 minutes you were getting the shit run out of you. And every night, and then first you got to walk up them damn steps.
Yeah.
You're sitting down, and the coach comes in before the game, and I'm just going, please don't call my name, don't call my name. Ludwig, you and so-and-so, you and Rick, whoever it is. And I'm like, oh, man, we're going to get run for the first 5 times.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, I absolutely love playing in that building, and I can see why it was such a draw to everybody because it was electric in that place.
Peluso and Grimson.
When did you actually, how did you get in? Did you go to school for sports broadcasting?
Yeah. Broadcast journalism. Yeah.
So you kind of knew coming out of high school what you were.
Well, I mean, once I realized I wasn't going to play in the NBA.
Okay.
Once I got that through my head, then it was basically because my dad worked on the railroad. And he had the Milwaukee Road and the Sioux Line and I think a little while for the Burlington Northern. So all those railroads up in Wisconsin, but all over the U.S. Back then, the railroad was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to say he was the 4th generation of railroad people. So, I mean, think about that. Now you're talking like the American Civil War all the way through my childhood. Sturm men went to the railroad to work, right? One after the next. And so he took a job at 18 and he worked on the railroad for, I want to say, 42 years, right till his 60th birthday. And he got out of there as quick as he could, I want to say. And so he's been retired now for a while. But the point is, I grew up in a home where Dad complained about work every day. And
long days though.
Long days, and look, I wouldn't trade spots for all the tea in China, but it was just one of those deals where you learn through osmosis that I don't want to do what he does for a living, no matter if it's a family tradition or what. I don't want a part of that. And then I fell in love with sports, partly because of this weird TV rule my family had that we're only watching sports. And so I'm a little sports Frankenstein, as I'm sure people can attest, is, at 5 years old, the only thing you can watch on TV is sports. Okay, well, I want to watch that TV, so I don't even care. If other kids are watching cartoons, fine. Let's turn on a game so I can turn on the TV. And so you work around the rules of your parents, and you learn what they like and don't like, and before long, you want to do sports, and you don't know what that means, but you do know it makes you happy when there's a game going on, or when you learn whatever, or open up a pack of cards or something. You're just like, this is what I want to do.
Did you retain everything and then like the next day, or you weren't taking notes and things?
No, but I had a pretty good memory.
Yeah.
The family gatherings would always involve calling little Bobby over to the table and, hey, give
him the rundown.
Name as many Brewers as you can. And I'm giving them the whole lineup and the whole rundown of the '82 World Series or something like that. So that was always me. And so when I found out I was gifted with the DNA of like a sloth, then I had to figure out, okay, well, how can I be adjacent to sports? And that, of course, means media would be the one where you have a job that's not easy, but it's way easier than other people on the outskirts of sports,
working on the railroad,
or PR people. They work ridiculous hours that I would not change places with them. The guys in the equipment room work ridiculous hours. I would not change.
Trainers may have the worst. They'll call it the best job in sports.
Yeah,
but it is definitely.
They have
when
a great
you
attitude.
land at 2-3 in the morning.
And
they're
go right to do laundry.
They're going to go hang their stuff up, and then when the guys get there at the rink at 9 in the morning for morning skate, they're already there. 2 hours ahead of time. Yeah.
So yes, they're on the bus. They're enjoying seeing all the universe, but they're doing it in circumstances that kind of look miserable.
Yeah.
Whereas the media guys, I don't know. I kind of think Razor has a pretty fun life.
Yeah, exactly.
And part of it might be because he emotes that. He kind of lives that image. But I think the media was the first idea. So my first thought was journalism, straight writing, and then it turned into broadcast journalism because I wanted to do play-by-play for hockey. That was my dream.
Yeah,
and so. I'm in university at Liberty, and I'm already thinking about my career, and I'm going to the occasional Washington Capitals or Chicago Blackhawks games when my schedule allows. But now I'm obsessed with the NHL because now I realize that because I'm not living at home, I can go to games, and if I have disposable income, it's going to be to go see the NHL in person. And so now I'm like, okay, so how do I do this? How do I get to the play-by-play world? And I thought, so I remember sending letters to places like St. John's and Moncton and some of these places up on the east coast of Canada. Yeah, is that right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. I've never been there.
That's up there.
Yeah. Well, there was a job, I thought. Yeah. If I could get that play-by-play job, maybe I'll be in the NHL in 5 or 10
like
years.
A minor league team or junior team?
I want to say it was. I want to say it was a junior team, but now you're asking a good question. Were they a Leafs affiliate or something? I don't know. Whatever was going on in my head as a 20-year-old is I need to find a foothold into the NHL feeder system to show that I can do play-by-play. And basically, as I was doing that, and as I have these letters out, I don't know how I'm going to get there. And quickly, sports talk radio started happening. So just a little context, sports talk radio was kind of born in the late 80s. Like 1988, WFAN in New York was like the first all sports. There were sports talk shows on like news talk stations, but there weren't sports radio stations. And so I remember the issue of Sports Illustrated had it a little on the, kind of, hey, some radio station is going to talk sports all day. What are they going to talk about? There's not enough things to talk about. And I was like, whoa.
That's me.
How is this even possible? Are you serious? You just talk about sports into microphones and you have debates and you're talking about last night's game and like we're sitting at the kitchen table, like you get paid for that?
Yeah.
That might be me. And so I always had this thought that I would prefer to do play-by-play. And now I'm to the point where pragmatically, the NHL would be great, but so would the NBA, so would Major League Baseball, so would the NFL. So I'm always thinking maybe that's where I should go. But as I'm thinking that, Sports Talk's always right there saying, we have a job for you. Like, we have a job for you right now. And so if that wasn't there, I would have pursued this, and who knows? Maybe I would have made it, maybe I would have failed. But this was always there, and it seemed like people always enjoyed what I came up with on Sports Talk Radio to a point where, it's your guy, Bob Gainey, has a cliche I think of every day of my life. Oh. Every day of my life, I now tell it to my kids. They are sick of it. But his cliche was, it's hard to be hungry when you're full.
Oh, man, if you could, and I probably shouldn't say all this, but what that line has come up numerous times from certain owners about some of their big players.
Yes.
That they're not playing. And that's really
right.
And
so, that's what it means.
Yeah. And I hear it so many times, and I've heard it a couple times.
Yeah.
And I would turn around and go, that's bullshit, because that's not what this guy's about.
Right.
You're basically saying, he's got his money and he doesn't care about the team.
It's misused.
Yeah. It is misused.
Yes. And the owner who writes the contract and then is upset that it doesn't hit its ceiling every time is unfamiliar with how contracts and players' careers work, and especially players' careers post-surgery. And if you'd like to dive into that, we certainly can. But for me, it meant there's something about a grumbling stomach that makes you pursue things harder. and there's something about a full stomach that says, what's so bad about this?
Yeah.
And so I guess what I had was, what's so bad about this kind of took me out of my play-by-play dream, except, periodically things happen, like Ralph leaves or Dave Strader gets sick or something like that, where I'm like, did the planets just align perfectly? And then, no, they didn't. Josh Bogorod was way better and way more prepared, and he's great.
Yes.
And so it never really happened for me. And I've left that at the curb, and it's fine because sports talk has been very good to me. But that's kind of how it happened. It's always, I'm not going to work for the railroad. The last thing I want to do is sit in a cubicle and work a real job.
Yeah.
I was obsessed in my early years of figuring out how to make a living around games and sports, and I just turned 50, so I guess I've done it. But that's really the entire story. Is I just wanted to feel like I was never upset when the weekend ended and I had to go back to work on Monday. Like I look forward to it.
Yeah.
And
it's in your blood.
Yeah, it is. And so I don't mind vacation ending. In fact, sometimes I prefer vacation ends. I don't mind the weekend ending, because when I get to go back to work, there will be a game tonight. And even if I don't care about it, I'll care about it when it starts. And that's what I do. And I've never stopped.
Your first job when you got here in Dallas, was it a nighttime gig?
Yeah.
What are the hours on that?
It was 8 to 11 p.m.
Okay, so it's not going into 1, 2 in the morning.
No, but I like to say, and
are you thinking that you're actually talking to people?
Well, that's what's funny is the ticket was a huge deal when I got here, and so it was this weird thing where, they went on the air right as the Cowboys were winning their second Super Bowl. And right as the Stars arrived in Dallas. So those two things all three of those things happened in 1994, So Cowboys win their second Super Bowl in Atlanta, Super Bowl 28. The Stars arrive from Minnesota, and the ticket goes on the air all within a couple months of each other. It's crazy. And so, as that is all, sort of fallen in place, it's this wild, rise, and the ticket was a really, really big deal. And so when I got here, I had no idea Dallas was going to come calling for me, because I was really close with my wife to saying, let's just move back to Madison. We'll just get real jobs and let's just get on with it, because I was making no money doing sports talk in a little town in Virginia. And it wasn't fun. Like, when you owed the IRS money and you had to put it on your credit card, it's just you owe a car repair, you put it on the credit card, you're just scraping by because nobody's listening to your radio station. Your wife can't get a teaching job because there are no teaching jobs open in these tiny towns, and so you kind of got to move to where the fish are, right? And so I didn't know how to do that, and I remember kind of panicking around age 26, because I remember going back to my father-in-law telling him that I'll take care of his daughter. I'm going to marry her and
made that commitment.
Yeah, and I have to provide a living, and I realize I'm still not breaking $15,000 a year. And so okay, this is tough. So I just about signed up for life selling insurance or whatever I was going to end up doing, and I remember, as we're making arrangements to probably move back to Madison, it was, hop on this thing called the internet. It just kind of got going. And I remember searching, I don't even think Google existed, but I remember searching sports radio. And then it popped up sportsradio.com. And I'm like, okay, sportsradio.com, click. And it turned out it was a guy named Rick Scott, who was a consultant for sports radio stations, meaning he flies into town, listens to your station, says you stink or you're great or here's what I would do, and then he leaves. It's consultant jobs. But I said to him, hey, I think I'm pretty good at talking sports. I think I have, encyclopedias stored in between my ears. I think I can handle callers. I think I can do all this. I don't know how. I don't know how to get from market 166 to a market where I can make a living. And, I remember in school they say, try to jump Bob, try to jump like 30 markets at a time. So I'm like, geez, I'm in market 166. Just to get to an NHL city, I'm going to have to change jobs like 5 times to get up into the top 30 or top 40. That sounds brutal. That sounds like the next 20 years of my life working in these little tiny towns. And he said, send me a tape. Okay, send you a tape. And then a couple weeks later, I'm making up excuses to contact him because I don't want to be too pushy, but I also don't want him to forget about me. So I'm like, hey, Rick. Rick Scott was his name. Hey, Rick, what'd you think of the tape? Do you think, what can I do better? He's like, hey, within the next week, you'll be hearing from a program director in a top 10 market. Like, top 10 market?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, hey, I haven't even paid this guy a penny. I haven't done anything. I just sent him a tape. He now says somebody in a top 10 city is going to contact you. And it turned out to be the tickets program director, Bruce Gilbert, who I owe my life to, who's also from Wisconsin Dells. And he heard my tape. I actually have a rejection letter from him 2 years prior when he was in Pittsburgh. But he took the job in Dallas, heard my tape a brand new time, and called me and said, hey, we have a nighttime opening, and we'd love to get you out here to try out. And this is like Father's Day of '98, roughly that weekend. And I remember, just the general vibe was, all I've done on the air as a kid in Virginia is kind of make fun of the Dallas Cowboys because they're kicking the crap out of the Packers back then, and I find Troy Aikman so smug, and why is he not letting Favre past him in the playoffs? And these Cowboys are so loaded, and the refs love them, and all the broadcasters act like they're Cowboy fans, and so my early tapes are me
bashing them,
just bashing the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, first of all, I would never want to live there. And second of all, if anybody ever found out what I used to say about the Cowboys, I'd be done.
Yeah.
And so I had all this baggage in my head. And turns out living in Dallas is awesome.
Oh, isn't it?
And I really don't want to leave unless I can somehow buy a great place on the Pacific someday. But otherwise, I love it here. And frankly, other than giggling at my young tapes, nobody cares that I used to goof on the Cowboys. And Troy Aikman himself hired me to work for him. It's all crazy
how that stuff works. Right?
Young me couldn't stand Troy Aikman, and now I find out he's a great dude who wanted me to work for him.
We used to, when we were living over in Valley Ranch when we got here, Russ Cortnell, Shane Shirley, myself, 2A, Sikoski. We'd go over to Troy's and play cards.
Really?
Yeah, like once a week we'd go.
Wow.
Over. No beer, no popcorn, no peanuts. We had to go back to our places to get beer and go over there. But talk about a class act.
Stepnoski loves hockey, right? A lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Moose
Him
loves
and
hockey.
DJ, I mean, their son's playing or was playing at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so they got into that, and so I think we got tight because we went to Cowboys all the time. Little
right.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Cross paths and stuff like that, and so we became friends. And next thing you know, Daryl's sitting behind the goalie and watching games with his wife and stuff like that. So
I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you one thing. So they hired me at nights, 8 to 11.
Yeah.
And this is the Cup year.
Yeah.
And so I start in July. The first thing I did is I sent money to the Stars to get season tickets because I couldn't believe I lived in an NHL city.
Yeah.
And I didn't anticipate covering the Stars was part of my gig because they're like Cowboys, Rangers, Mavericks. Oh yeah, we have a hockey team too. And I'm like, whoa, you definitely have a hockey team because I just saw, the Jamie Langenbrunner goal in the Western Finals in 98. And so, I think you guys have a chance to win the next cup, but didn't know that. The week I got hired at the ticket is the week Brett Hull signed. And
that was
again,
in July.
If I were to go back
was that June or July?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I were to go back to the WCHA in 83, 84, Minnesota Duluth would come to town with Bobby Hull's son.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's Bobby Hull's son. And then he'd score 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my gosh, Brett Hull is going to rule the hockey world. And I got obsessed with Brett Hull. And now he goes to Dallas roughly a week before I did. And now I'm working nights, and even though I'm working nights, I want Stars tickets. I'll figure it out, or I'll get rid of the ones I can't use. But I got to be there to see the Dallas Stars in 98, 99, because this is going to be a great team, and I've always wanted to live in the city. And I remember my tickets were at the top row at Reunion, up in the corner, and they were like $8 a game.
Yeah.
And it was the best. What a cool arena.
Yeah.
So, but I'm working at night, and so I always say, because the ticket was so popular, but the nighttime show was on while games were being played. And so I always thought,
Did you have a TV in there that you could watch?
But who's listening?
Yeah.
Because if you love sports enough to listen to sports radio, then you also love the Rangers, Stars, Mavericks, and Cowboys, and you're watching their games, and nobody's listening when I'm on. Thankfully, that spring break, Craig. Boy, I talk a lot, don't I? But thankfully, that spring break.
That's why you can host shows like you do for 4 or 5 hours.
Rocco Pendola got fired. He did noon to 3. And he got fired for whatever reason, but he was the hockey guy. He was the guy at the ticket who knew what a hockey puck was. All the rest of the guys.
But he didn't?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
But back then, there wasn't a real long sign-up sheet for people to cover hockey.
Sure.
And all the guys who were born and raised in Dallas, they loved the fights. They loved, the girls who were going to the games.
Yep.
But they didn't know what was going on the ice. They knew it was cool. They knew Mike Modano was good. But, it was a very low-level understanding of the game. So I'm like, man, I'm obsessed with the sport. And their hockey guy just got himself fired. And now we're talking, you guys are going to the playoffs in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
Like, we're late March. This guy gets fired, and I'm like, dude, I think
Saw an opening.
I think the door just opened where I can not only, cover this team and get a better time slot, but I'm going to be on the road with these guys. And sure enough, I was in St. Louis when you guys finished off the Blues. Then I was at every game, home and away, in what I consider my favorite playoff series of all time, the 99 Western Conference Finals,
Colorado,
where you guys closed McNichols Arena, and with that huge Game 6 win. And, I didn't need the airplane to come back. And then Game 7, after that gutting Game 5, where you guys lost at home on a Sunday afternoon, and Forsberg was great and everything like that. But that Game 7 at Reunion, those
Belfour
of us
stepped up again.
Oh my gosh, and Keane and just the whole thing, and I remember kind of thinking to this day, this is the greatest sporting event I've ever been at. This 7-game series, it was so good. It was so filled with stars, on both sides. I think they just got maybe Theo Fleury, if I got my years right, and they had Claude Lemieux and Sakic and Forsberg and Adam Foote, and just
they were loaded.
Just an unbelievable roster. Of course, Patrick between the pipes, and you guys, are on a mission as well. And then I got to be in Buffalo that beautiful night, in Game 6. And
were you there?
Yeah, I was at all these games,
okay.
and so it all happened
Yeah.
within 10 months of me leaving Market 166. 10 months later, jump cut, I'm in Buffalo. And so that day, I didn't go to games 3 and 4 in Buffalo for whatever reason. And I think they took me off that and sent like the morning show. But Game 6 was on a Saturday. And so they're like, hey, if you want this one, book a flight. And so I booked a flight, and it landed in Buffalo like at 4 p.m. And I have to get to the arena because you guys are at Marine Midland Arena or something like that at 7 or whatever it was for Game 6. And so I remember I got off the airplane, rented a car, went to my hotel, just got to the hotel enough to open the door, put my bag inside, close the door, and run back to the car and get to the arena. Totally true. What happened was the game took about 5.5 hours.
You should have brought some clothes with you. Change of clothes, yeah.
So I had a 8 a.m. flight.
Oh, no.
I don't say we, because I'm not a cheerleader like Tom Ghilardi says I am, but
that article.
But we won the cup in Buffalo at 2:30 in the morning or something like that. Then we go on the air on the ticket. We stay on the air, and we have drunk Eddie Belfour. We have a ton of stuff going on the air that night, and then you guys fly home. But I'm still on the air at Marine Midland Arena, and it's 6:30, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 6:30 in the morning. I have to get to the airport, or I'm going to miss my flight back to Dallas. So now, stand on the gas, go back to the hotel, open the door, grab my bag back out, close the door, and run to the airport to catch my flight home. And again, this all happened in 10 months from when I was making $15,500 a year in Lynchburg, Virginia.
You won the lottery.
I won the lottery.
And look at you now.
Yeah, and then, and then you're doing post-game shows outside Reunion, and I can't even fathom how weird it was because the city was so bonkers about you guys. Yeah. Like there are girls just pulling up their tops over their head at a post-game show for hockey. Craig, I was not prepared for this nonsense.
Yeah, but you didn't say I want to quit my job. I want to go back to the nighttime shift.
Dad, I shouldn't be doing that. No, I did not. And honestly, that's been my meal ticket to this day is a lot of people remember those Stars years of 98 to basically when Hitch and Gainey went away on the same day, that those were the glory days. And they kind of set me up to where I went from being just another name on a roster at the ticket.
You're on the map now.
This is our guy who was with us for the Cup and the next year. So it did immense benefit for me, my career. Like you guys helped this guy make a living, because now they're interested in football. He does football too. Oh, cool. Come do football. And it grew from there, but it really started like it's just so many things happening that allowed me to kind of establish myself in this massive, huge market. And it was all thanks to falling in love with hockey back when you were with North Dakota.
Well, but it was our pleasure.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
Right.
We enjoyed it.
I owe a ton to you guys.
I want to know the difference, going from noon to 3 to the shift when you do 4 to 7. I'm curious, because for us, we're kind of creatures of habit, and we get dialed into that certain time frame.
Yeah.
Is it a big change for you? And is the prep different? Do you have a different audience? I mean, are you trying to, or does it change anything for you?
Yeah, it does. It changes quite a few things. First of all, I'm not working with Dan after 20 years. Yeah. And so that, I guess 21 years, we had so much fun. I love Dan. To this day, we're great friends. Mike Reiner retired in 2020.
Mike was one of the reasons we're here right now.
Yeah.
Because he was doing a podcast, I think, out of his
I sat in this very seat for that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So I owe a ton to Rhines, and I owe a ton to the Dallas Stars, and so he did his Irish goodbye, if you will, December of 2019. And so he signed off, and nobody knew he wasn't coming back. Mm-hmm. And then Christmas break ends, and he just says, I'm done. He's retired. And, the fact that a couple of years later he was unretired is totally his prerogative. But
he's got billboards all over the city.
He doesn't lack billboards. But no, it's funny. We thought he was just done doing radio, which in your late 60s, I hope I'm not even close to doing radio in my late 60s, but who knows? But he went away, and so the station, asked me if I'd be open to trying to sit in his chair, which, gosh, that sounds like a lot of pressure, but the station's been so good to me that they've never asked me to do anything, so I thought, okay, yeah. But then they broke up Bob and Dan, left Dan in middays, put me with Corby, Mike's former partner. And so it's great, but it's different. And so now we've been doing this 3 years already, which is crazy how time flies because I'm still the new guy. What I learned is my day is different. I have more time to play golf, which is, I'm sure, important to everybody, that I have more time to play golf.
Are you a good golfer?
Way better than I used to be.
Can you play with Mo and Hully and those guys?
No. Okay. Hockey players hit it too far.
Yeah, not this one, but yeah.
Okay.
I can hit it far. It's just deep in the woods.
Has to be a softball.
Exactly. That I can.
Well, I love golf. I love it. It basically is something that occupies your mind, and it replicates the good old days.
You
when
don't
you
seem
used to
like
play
the guy
sports.
that gets pissed off, though.
No, I don't. But I do find that the ball doing whatever it wants and not doing what I want it to do
It's aggravating.
can push my buttons.
Yeah.
But it's funny because your mind is constantly trying to solve problems all day long, and it's like, hey, have you ever thought about keeping your wrists like this in the back? Maybe that's what's going. You're like, you're right, and so you want to go practice that. So I'm at the stage where I've broken 80 a few times.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Where I come from, that's really good.
It's really good, but there's so many players in this city alone
that would consider that a shitty day.
That think I'm horrendous.
Yeah.
And so both can be true.
Yeah.
I can be, depending on who you're playing with, you're either good or you're awful.
Yeah.
And that's where I am.
Right.
But I love the sport. And so, yes, going now to 3 to 7 allows me a little more time for that. Otherwise, what I found is there are so many people that work and they can't listen to the radio like noon to 3. So I had been at the ticket for like 20 some years, and they had no idea who I was besides he's the Yankee who talks hockey. I guess they thought noon to 3 was just straight hockey talk all the time, which no offense to anybody, but I don't think you can get ratings in Dallas all the time just doing hockey talk.
No, you can't. You get fired.
Yes.
You didn't, but you get fired.
Yeah, so honestly, it's a ton of football and basketball and whatever, but whatever keeps us employed. Anyway, the first time listeners in 2020, well, it was just weird to me that I had been in this studio at the ticket for this many years, at this many events. I had seen the World Series in person, the NHL Finals. I had seen the Cup skated in person. I've seen the Dirk win an NBA title in person. I've seen all these unbelievable things. I saw the Packers win a Super Bowl in Dallas for all these years. And then there are guys who hop in their car at 5 o'clock, flip on the ticket because that's what they've always done. And they're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Like, bro, I got here in 1998. How do you, but they work all day. And so
did you have to win those listeners over?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And a lot of them are native Texans who don't like Yankees in the first place.
Okay.
They're out there. And I guess some of them are okay with me now, and that's cool. But, it's just funny how you don't realize that people don't hear your every word. They just hear your show once a month or once every couple of weeks or something like that. And that's how the medium works. But in your head, you're like, I just said this, or I've been saying this time and time again. How do you not? It's because people are living their own lives. And
so that's a different group of listeners. Is that?
It's the
what
same.
Would you say 70, 80% are different, or not that?
Probably not that much, but there's a big chunk, so it's a big chunk of people that know everything, and then there's a big chunk that are meeting me for the first time. So whatever. And then COVID, and then nobody worked, and then, nobody listened to the radio. Nobody cared about sports for like 6 months and all these things. But I love it. And I also love when I get off at 7 o'clock, I'm literally 20 steps from the NHL and the NBA games just starting. So that's cool. But I'm also old enough that I've seen 1,000 games. And so I don't mind going to my couch and watching them back there, and that way I don't get divorced or anything like that.
Yeah,
And my kids still know who I am. So, hey, we've all seen a lot of games. Those of us who are lucky.
Speaking of kids.
Yeah.
Did you adopt all 3 of your kids?
No, just the youngest.
Just the youngest.
Yes.
And you had to go to Guatemala.
Guatemala was where the story sort of starts. Honduras is where he was.
Okay.
Which is their next door neighbor.
And how old was he when you adopted him?
He was 4.
4.
No, in fact, let me fix this. He was 4 when we met him. He was 5 when we were officially adopted. And when we basically brought him into our family, we had to take custody. And so his birthday happened in between. Funny thing, he wasn't told his birthday happened. And so he's when we adopted Justin, he didn't speak any English. And our Spanish was pretty limited, although I had worked hard on it. So I always tell Spanish speakers, yo hablo español como un niño tiene 6 años, which means I speak
a little bit. I'm guessing.
Well, no, I speak Spanish I speak Spanish like a 6-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that usually breaks the ice, and
Okay.
they quickly agree. Yeah, you speak roughly like a 6-year-old, maybe a slow 6-year-old, but so we were always working on how to communicate with him and how much he knew, because the education system in Honduran orphanages are not elite, and so funny. We had to live in Honduras for 6 weeks, and one of the things we did is we did a catch-up birthday. So he thought he was 4. He was really 5 and like 3 months. And so we had a fake birthday for him without him knowing, to get him to 5.
Yeah.
And then his real birthday was like 9 months later. But because he was only 5, they're not sharp enough to be able to measure 12 months from 9 months. And so he had 2 birthdays in a 9-month period, or 2 birthday parties. And we got his age all caught up, and he learned English. And
So when you go there and you meet, like, how much time do you have with him in total before you guys go home, or if you stayed there, I'm not sure, and just said, yes, he's gonna be our boy?
Well, okay. So so I was in Vancouver with the Stars, February of 2011. The Stars weren't very good, and we were in Vancouver doing our show on a Stars road trip, and I remember my wife emailed me the picture of our first candidate. And again, faith is a big thing in our life to this day. And so when we went down the adoption road, it was like, look, we're not shopping. Whatever God puts in that email, we're in.
Yep.
Whoever. Like, he has a plan.
There was a reason this
Yes,
happened.
he has a plan. He knows who would fit in our family. Our big thing was we wanted to be our youngest kid, because for some reason there were thoughts in my head that if it was an older kid who had sort of a rough edge, maybe he'd make my present biological kids uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to adopt a bully. Yeah. I'm the bully in the family, right? Yeah. And so
I don't think you are.
No, I'm not.
No.
It's funny. It's a funny sports bully moniker, but I'm really pretty tame. But anyway, first picture we see, we're both going to give it thumbs up regardless of who it is. But it's this adorable little Honduran boy who's 4 years old, who lives in an orphanage, and so that's in February. We can meet him in April. And Sally and I took a weekend in April to go meet him, and we thought it was like a 2-hour get to know him. And the orphanage thought, you guys are taking him for 48 hours. And so right out of the orphanage, he's never seen white people before.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so imagine how I represent the entire ethnicity. Like, if I'm the first white person you've ever seen, how shockingly scary is that? And so it's my wife, who's far easier on the eyes than I am, and little Justin, or Hostin in Spanish, and me. And now we're in this city of Tegucigalpa, and it's the 3 of us, and it's like a sitcom. Like, he doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
He's been living in an orphanage. He takes off running wherever. He's a survivor. I remember we got to the hotel room, and he's 4, and he immediately starts stacking furniture because there's a lock up there, and he knows how to do everything, because again,
he needed to know.
If you grow up in an orphanage, you know how to survive. You know how to find food anywhere. You know how to. So he is trying to break out of our hotel room as we're all trying to get to know him. And he's like,
I ain't having any of this.
This is my chance to break out of the orphanage. Like, he's thinking jailbreak. And so we spent 48 hours with him. He punched me in the face, which had never happened from a 4-year-old before. But he thought the best way to deal with 6'4", 230 was to just crank back and punch me in the face. It wobbled me just a little bit, but I survived. But so leaving Honduras, we took him back to the orphanage 2 days later after buying him pajamas and a toothbrush and all this stuff. And so we had a good time. 2 days later, we were a little freaked out about the experience because it doesn't look like he wants anything to do with us. But we're just like, look, God made this all happen for a reason. We're in. And so now it's waiting for the Honduran embassy and the U.S. embassy and everybody to tell us to come back.
Yeah.
And so in August, we're invited back to go make the transaction, whatever that means, and all the stuff. And, you know, human trafficking is a big problem in our world. And so they need to make sure I am who I say I am and all this sort of thing. And so we have to live there 6 weeks. And so during that time, you know, it's now we're bringing our 2 biological kids who were 7 and 5 at the time, and Justin just turned 5. And so our kids don't totally know what's going on just from you know, when you're 5, you can't really process, is this a play date? Are we going on vacation? Oh no, he's your new brother, you know, and that's really hard for kids.
How did that go over with them?
At first they were eager to meet him, and then they were eager to, like, when can we take him back? You know, when is this play date over?
He didn't punch either one of them in the nose.
No, but they realized he was annoying, and I'm sure he realized they were annoying just because kids are annoying. And you know, now it's great.
Yeah.
But getting from here to there is a long road.
What would you say? What was the time frame from when you got back here to where
everything was like normal?
Yeah,
man.
Is it ever? But
I think it is, but I think it's different for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like my wife, you know, God bless her, she's super transparent, but she said something that, you know, was like, you know, when do you truly love somebody?
Yeah.
Like, how many days does it take? You know, and she obviously got there, but at first it's like you're acting like you love someone because they're a total stranger, and you know, you want them in your family, you want the best, but I mean, love isn't like a button you press,
like a light switch.
No. Like you know, in your heart, like, was this a mistake? You know, just all those weird things, right? So, you know, it was fun to kind of bring them into our world. We landed at the Houston airport, and we had a connection there back to Dallas. And this is after 40 days, where the first day he comes into our bedroom at 5 a.m. and is opening up the drapes because I guess that's what you did at the orphanage. And my wife's like, this is not going to work. We get to the Houston airport, and I go get everybody lunch, and I come back, and he's chewing gum, and we're like,
where'd that come from?
Where'd that come from? And he picked it off from underneath the table because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You're a survivor. You're like, oh, this gum still has some chewing in it. So, you know, and I'm like, bro, you know, let's not do that again. Yeah. If you want gum, I'll go get you some gum that's your own. And, you know, it's just, you know, now he's just a great kid, and he's one of, you know, a blessing and all that. But now we're on the other side of it, where we're not that far from being empty nesters. Yeah. So it went from the chaos of 3 kids under 7 in Honduras for 6 weeks, and now my girl's at A&M, and my boy, I just took my middle boy to Oklahoma State, and he's figuring out where he wants to go to school. And now Justin is about to turn 17. So it happens fast, man. And
but all worth it.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's honestly fantastic. And so this whole ride of you know, starting, you know, in Sun Prairie, and then you see
amazing the paths that
all the things that have happened along the way. You're just like, this is the best. I'm really grateful.
Well, I know you got a real job to go to here. I got to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
Tony Romo versus Troy Aikman, broadcast-wise.
Yeah.
Do you have one you prefer more? Are they equal? Are they just different? They go about their business. I'm just curious in your thoughts when you listen to Troy call a game versus Tony.
Now, you know, one pays me and one doesn't.
Know.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, because it's a really biased answer.
I just want to see how you're going to suck up this one.
Troy's awesome.
Okay.
He really is. You could tell the guys.
I think again, go ahead. I want to hear your.
Well, you could tell the guys who put a lot of preparation into it.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
He does his homework.
Right. Yeah.
And I have not, and I know everybody has their different people that they love to listen to.
Yes.
To me, it's like Tony wants to tell you what the next play going to be.
Right.
But when I listen to Troy, and I've had this discussion with some other people that are Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
And as you know, I wear my Packers stuff.
Right,
When I
right.
go to Wisconsin, I wear Cowboys shit.
There you go.
Piss people off.
There you go.
But Troy can tell you camp, and they can tell you in practice, and this is what this guy did.
Yeah.
You know what? It seems like a different style, I guess.
No, I mean, the fact that he reached out and said, to me, the fact that he reached out and he's like, look, I listened to your show. I know how much you're into the sport. Would you be interested in helping me get ready for games? That told me how this dude wants to, I mean, Troy.
But first off, it tells you how good you are at what you do.
Well, it's incredibly flattering.
Yeah.
In fact, when I heard that Troy Aikman wanted to talk to me, I wondered, what have I said that has angered, a guy I really respect? Like, am I going to the principal's office here? And then he asked me if I wanted to work for him, and you're just like, that's incredibly flattering. But I am thinking, dude, you've been like the number one broadcaster in the NFL for 15 years. Why do you want to add me for year 16? Like, again, that's super, super flattering, but it also felt like he was running up the score for his preparation. And so, yeah, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff on a really high level. He's preparing all week. And Tony is really talented, and he knows the game really, really well. But I think he likes golf as much as I do, and I think a lot of his preparation time might be on game day. And I'm positive that sounds really mean, and I don't mean it to be, because he's great at what he does. Yeah. He is making an incredible amount of money, but I don't think preparation is something he enjoys nearly as much as Troy does. And I think you can tell that in their styles, where one guy is kind of giving you his visceral reaction to everything instantaneously, and then one guy is kind of prepped for this test all week.
Yeah, I guess I lean on Troy when I listen to the game, because he analyzes it more for me. He kind of breaks things down. You get to know a little bit more about the player.
Well, and he has context. Like, he knows how we got here with each player, sort of.
And you know what I really I hate is a strong word, obviously. I don't like it when they call them by their numbers, like when they say number 50, number 32,
exactly.
Because, and I know that they do that on purpose probably, but in my head I'm going, dude, you don't even know the guy's name, which I know it's probably not true.
No, but in some cases it is.
Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking,
in some cases it is. And there's a lot of names, man, as you know.
Yeah, I know. But you love that sport, though, don't you?
I do. I love, the thing about, people are like, dude, we get it. You like sports. Yeah. Why are you acting like you now like another sport? Like, now, okay, Formula One, PGA, UFC, just all this stuff. Like, we get it. You got the job. Stop, And I'm like, man,
this is you.
It's me. And it's not the game necessarily, although each of them have their appeal. It's the story. It's the actors. It's the good guys and the bad guys. And I think if you pick any sport you want, pick Big Ten basketball or boxing or I'm sure horse racing is like this. I don't know, but the rugby, whatever you want to pick, if you got to know the main people involved, their paths, their rivalries, their goals, their achievements, their championship they've spent their whole life waiting for. If you know that context, then any of these games becomes interchangeable, because that's the quest, that's the human, journey that wows us all. Like, those of us who weren't talented enough to achieve anything big time in sports, we do it vicariously through these teams that I guess are geographically relevant to us. Right. But we don't, people always say, who do you like more, the Cowboys or the Packers? And I say, without question, it's the Packers, because it's in my DNA. At the same time, I don't know any of them personally. Where with the Cowboys, I know these guys personally, and I want them to achieve their dreams. And so it's this weird relationship where I certainly don't dislike either side, but I still have that relationship with the Packers that I did when I was a boy, where it's...
Which isn't going to leave.
And I don't want it to. It's, I always say your favorite team is unlike anything in the world, because you'll feel this way when you're 4 and when you're 74. And there's nothing else. Like, when you're 4, you don't care about girls. or at least most of us don't. You don't care about money. You don't get, and when you're 74, you probably still are really into girls and you're probably still into money, but 4-year-old you doesn't recognize that.
Right.
But boy, we both recognize that G, and that yellow helmet, and you're just like, I love this. And so very few things do you have in common at those two ends of your life, and your sports team you do. And again, to know so many members of the Dallas Cowboys or Dallas Stars or whoever, you're just like, man, I really want this for this guy. I know how hard he works. I know what a good guy he is, but it's a different relationship,
Is Dak the guy?
Odds are no, just based on the odds. That's the thing. Like, so many of these, I always think our city is so bitter about its sports teams. Like, everybody thinks every team sucks.
Yeah.
And I think that's a coping mechanism, because the reality is, in a 32-team league, your fair turn is a title every 32 years.
32 years, right.
And the Cowboys have been in the desert for like 27.
Tell that to them guys in Kansas City. And
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Now dynasties screw up your 32 years. Like, now it's 64. You're a Lions fan.
Right.
You're like, I'm not going to see one in my lifetime. And so, people are now. We used to go to sports for an escape, and now we have found that sports also make us miserable. And so it's this coping mechanism where everybody like kind of kicks their own team because they don't want their heart broken. And the best way to never get your heart broken is to never fully believe in your team. So you're always expecting them to lose. And so that's the relationship with Dak or the Stars right now, or Luka or whoever, is that we just don't think these guys are probably good enough, or we think their coaches are dumb, or their roster's not good enough. So it's a weird relationship. So is Dak a great dude? Yes. Is he a good quarterback? Yes. Is he a very good one? Probably. Is he a great one? No. And so now you work through these exercises with people like, okay, fine.
But you committed to him.
Yeah.
So let's surround him with some more pieces.
Or let's do what you want to do. Let's get rid of him. What are we going to do? Who's our quarterback now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just not him. Okay, well, that's not a solution. Like, we have to have a solution here. If we're going to switch it out, we can. But you have to know, there's a whole universe of quarterbacks worse than Dak Prescott.
Exactly.
So let's not just sign up for worse because we're sick of looking at his face. If you have one of the 10 human beings that are better than him, and but of those 10, a few are over 40, a few are insufferable divas like our guy up in Green Bay, and at some point you have to, okay, this is probably the best guy we can do. Now let's help him be the best version of himself, sort of thing. It's the Jamie Benn discussion. It's all these discussions are sort of related to each other in some way.
Do you get a little message that's sent to you from the Cowboys owner, like you do from?
No, the Cowboys owner.
You guys are being too soft on him.
The Cowboys owner is one of a kind.
Yeah.
He drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely batty. But one thing you have to give him credit for is he has incredibly thick skin. He has thick skin in that he never responds to media, and he has thick skin in that he understands not every investment is a good one. And so as a businessman, he has this intuition that investments are like your batting average. You're going to make an out a lot. And so I think the Stars owner doesn't quite get that. Now, it's probably because he's probably not a many-time billionaire like Jerry is, and so there's less wiggle room. But I think the Stars owner, Tom Ghilardi, who is way better in my opinion, and I'm sure you and I could debate this, but the last half of the Tom Hicks run was me saying anybody but him is a better plan. Mm-hmm. And so Ghilardi comes in, and he's not Tom Hicks, and so immediately I want to love him. But you can kind of tell a guy is doing this for the first time because he writes these big contracts because, this emotion of, I don't want to lose the NHL scoring leader on a contract. I don't want the Maple Leafs to get Jamie Benn. I don't want whoever to get Tyler Seguin. So I got to write these deals. Yeah. Okay, you write these deals. You have to know that what they have accomplished when they sign the new contract is relevant, but it's not relevant.
Yeah, you're not really supposed to pay them for what they've done.
No.
You know.
No, but you might have to pay them to keep them.
Yes.
So now you got to make that deal, and you have to accept that injuries and expiration dates and all these things are real deals. And so, you know, in this wild journey, he's learning on the fly. And luckily for us, I guess, he speaks all of his thoughts.
Yeah.
So
he gives you content.
We don't have to know what he's thinking. He'll tell us what he's thinking. Yeah. But I imagine you're doing damage to your brand and to your organization if you are, for lack of a better term, dropping a deuce on your most valuable resources, because other players around the league see how you handle bad stretches. And so, you know, if I were to advise Tom Ghilardi anything, and really any owner, it's do fewer interviews.
Yeah.
Like there's no...
That's why you give some of those other guys a lot of money to do what they
right.
do. Yeah.
There's no upside in talking into this if you're an important figure.
Right.
Because, you know, you could tell interesting stories, but at some point your opinions are going to be used against you. And you know, like with the Stars, I'm not positive my broadcasting for them was always positive enough. And I think I irked a few of the important people up the chain. And I don't believe I'm welcome back on their actual broadcasts at this point, and that's fine. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say Sturm is too critical of us, therefore we don't want him on the broadcast, and then turn around and say Sturm is a cheerleader for us. Because which is it? Am I this big critic or I'm this big cheerleader? I will tell you, I do have tickets because I guess I am a cheerleader. I love watching hockey live, and I love the Dallas Stars brand, and I want the Stars to win a cup again in my lifetime, and I want good things. So I'm willing to pay part of my check to go to hockey games because it's what I do and it's what I love.
That's your love, yeah.
But at the same time, I'm going to tell you if your power play is garbage. And I think that's our job, is to be honest with people.
That's why you're the best guy in the market for doing what you do.
Thank you.
I mean, there's no question about it. And again, I think when you're in Canada, when you live in Canada, it's hard in Canada. I mean, I know that when we were, I mean, there was a bus for the media guys, you know, and when I first got to Montreal, and it was all real French at the time. There was something called the Journal there, which is considered the Bible. And you just look for your name.
Yeah.
And I was told, like, if it's not bad, you go in, you don't see your name, don't worry about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But there, if you had a bad practice, if you had a bad, you know what I mean? You miss the net in practice, you would hear about it. So I think that's the difference for owners that are in Canada.
Right.
You know, they're used to that certain standard.
Yeah. And you know, a guy like Mason Marchment, for instance, going through the drought he's going through.
28 games, 27.
Yeah. If he played in Toronto or Montreal, he would be a daily topic.
But that would mainly be because of what he's making too.
Yes.
I mean, that goes into the equation.
100%. 100%. And here, I would have to explain to a lot of my coworkers who Mason Marchment is.
Sure. Yeah.
And they remember his dad, but they probably are still so his son plays for the Stars? Yeah, he does, man. It's a big story. You should check it out. But again, that's the difference in markets. And I get that it's frustrating, but I also get that it's not really Mike Ducey's job or Dale Hansen's job to get your second line scoring.
Motivate him.
Yeah, I mean, look, and hire a coach that does that sort of thing. I think Pete DeBoer's great, but I do think if you're waiting for external forces to get your players playing harder, then you probably haven't assembled the right type of player.
And that usually falls under the category of leadership. You know, and the guys in the room.
And here's the other thing, Craig. Mason Marchment knows he's going through a drought.
Yeah.
He doesn't need someone to tell him.
Yeah.
And that's the ridiculousness is if you think a newspaper column will get Dak Prescott to a Super Bowl, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. That isn't how it works. Guys only get to the highest level of sports in our universe. You know this. Guys only get to your level because it means a lot to them. Yeah. And they're willing to sacrifice a ton of things in life to chase a dream. If you've chased that dream to a point where you're the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, you don't need personal motivation. Mm-hmm. You clearly have it. You're here.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that negative media makes a team play better. I just don't believe that.
I agree with you. And sometimes it can be, I mean, the last thing you want to do, then you kind of shut yourself off. You don't read anything. You don't watch anything.
That's right.
But when you mention Marchment, the only good news for Mason, or at least something to look forward to, is there's only 20-some games left to go before you hit the playoffs.
Yes.
And they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yes.
And you can erase all of that stuff with 2 good games in the playoffs in the first round. You know what I mean? That's the good news.
And you got him for that. His style is a playoff style, and the Stars don't have enough players like that, aside from Jamie, who play a rambunctious 7-game, I hate this clown, get him out of my city type style. Mason's can be that guy.
Yeah, so, I mean, the playoffs are all about who's going to push who out of the fight first.
That's right.
And I mean, you play the same team every night for 14 days, every other night for 14 days. That's what it comes down. And that's why Tampa went out and got what they did yesterday.
That's right.
I mean, they go ahead and bring in that kind of an element, which they're really good at that. And
they are.
So it'll be interesting. The East is going to be tough this year, whoever comes out of it.
Right.
The West is going to be tough just to get through. The only bad news about the setup, and I don't know if you can ever fix the setup, in the East, there's four teams that are gone in the first 2 rounds.
Yes.
I mean, that are really, really good teams.
Right.
But I guess if that's what Bettman and the owners want, then that's what they want.
At the end of the day, you got to have viewers, and that's why they got to have these divisional, abrasive. Even if it's unfair to find the best team at the end, they're like, look, we got to have eyeballs, or we don't have a
ratings.
Yeah.
That's why you got the dollar amount coming in.
Yeah. The West is way easier, but it still has that darn Colorado side, which is the team to beat.
It'll see if their captain gets back and play. You know what they're going to end up doing? They're going to do the same thing Tampa did a couple of years ago. They're going to have 10, 12 million in cap space. They can go ahead and make a couple moves.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden their captain comes back.
Oh, look at this.
Isn't this nice?
Well, look what happened.
All right. Bob Sturm, I'll tell you what, it's such a pleasure. You're a man of faith. You're a family man. You're insanely knowledgeable when it comes to all sports. You are the dude in this market, and it's a privilege for me just to have you in here to do this podcast today. So I thank you very much.
Well, that's amazing for you to say. It's an honor to be here. I'd love to do it again anytime you want. And 9-year-old me can't believe the me and the Fighting Sioux have finally made peace.
Yeah, you got it. Bob Sturm, thank you very much. Another episode. We're done. See ya.
Yeah.